Michael Flynn has just spoken in court. We are learning. I want to bring in my colleague Shimon Prokupez to learn what has happened. The judge in this case spoke, Emmet Sullivan, saying that he was concerned that Michael Flynn was not warned about the repercussions of lying to the FBI and that he didn't have counsel present.
So the thing here that's important is that the judge is basically telling Michael Flynn, do you want to withdraw your guilty plea? Are you now saying that you aren't guilty of this? And so they're going through this entire exercise now of questioning him about whether or not he really is guilty. And because the judge clearly is taking an issue with what Flynn's lawyers have been arguing, that he was somehow tricked into lying. So the judge plainly asked Flynn's lawyer, was your client entrapped? Do you feel there was entrapment here? He says no, that there was no entrapment. And so now that's exactly what they're going through. There is an issue now. The judge is concerned that perhaps Michael Flynn feels he somehow was entrapped, somehow was forced to lie by the FBI, and the judge just going through that now, making sure that Michael Flynn is willing to accept responsibility for the crimes that he committed here. And so that's exactly what's going on.
The judge was almost trying to, in a sense, giving him the opportunity to withdraw his guilty plea, but Michael Flynn saying that no, in fact, he was aware that he was lying to the FBI during that January 24th interview.
The judge even asking Flynn, do you want to postpone the sentencing? And Flynn says no. He's standing firm on his decision to plead guilty to the crime. But nonetheless, a lot of people suspected that this memo, this last sentencing memo that Flynn's attorney filed, could potentially create some problems for him. And it seems as though that is true, that we are now having to go through, the judge going through this entire exercise, making sure that Flynn is satisfied with his representation and that he is in fact guilty of what he says he did here.
And I want to bring in former FBI agent Asha. Just for context for our viewers, this is stemming from a filing from Michael Flynn's lawyers where they said that Michael Flynn was not warned about the repercussions of lying to the FBI before the interview, and the FBI did not recommend that he has counsel. And basically they made the argument that he was given a false sense of security. And Asha, the judge, Emmet Sullivan, in court just moments ago expressing concern about that and asking Michael Flynn if he still sticks by his guilty plea to lying to the FBI. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that the judge is taking these claims seriously. Look, I mean, Flynn is trying to make some serious legal and constitutional claims that are inconsistent with a full and unconditional acceptance of responsibility for his crime, which is what a plea of guilty is. So what the judge is saying is, if you're really serious about this, then I may not be able to accept this guilty plea. And that would be a big problem for Flynn, because then he may be in jeopardy of being charged with other things that he presumably pled guilty to avoid. I just want to also make clear that as a legal matter, when someone is not in custody, when they are free to leave, when it is a voluntary interview, the FBI is under no obligation to Mirandize them, to say you have a right to a lawyer. That is for a very specific setting. And I think that here the FBI would have reasonably believed that a career government three-star general would understand, especially somebody who led intelligence agencies before, that lying to the FBI was a crime.
And Robert Mueller, in the filing just last Friday, gave a strong rebuke to Michael Flynn's lawyer, saying, look, he knows it's a crime to lie to the FBI as a three-star retired general in the Army, as the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. But what do you make of this, Michael Zeldin? If Michael Zeldin is available, I'd like to bring him in just to get his perspective. What do you make of what is playing out inside of the courtroom?
Well, so the way it works is Mueller says in the sentencing memo, I think Flynn should get little or no time. Flynn replies saying, essentially, thank you very much, but court, you should understand that the circumstances of our lie can be mitigated by the interview process. Mueller replies to that saying, absolutely untrue. So now the judge has this situation, as Asha indicated, which is, Michael Flynn, what do you want to do? Are you pleading guilty, or are you contesting the terms under which your statements were made, and thereby seeking to remove yourself from the plea bargain? And I think Flynn is quite categorically saying, no, I want this plea bargain, and I accept responsibility, and I am contrite, and I want to be sentenced to no prison time. Why his lawyers, as Jack said in the first report, why his lawyers chose to contest the terms under which he was interviewed is just a complete mystery to me. And they should have let it be, in the first instance, accepting Mueller's representation that he was substantially helpful, and let this go. So now they're in this mess, in a sense. It'll work out fine in the end. But the one good thing, in some sense, Pamela, is that it will debunk the notion that this was a conspiracy to trap Flynn into a lie. When they go through this whole hearing now, where Flynn says, I knowingly and purposefully lied, I was not entrapped, I was not set up, I was not denied counsel, then those who have been promoting this notion of a perjury trap will be, silenced, and that's good.
And among those promoting that is the President of the United States, who just tweeted earlier today that Michael Flynn was pressured into lying. I want to bring in Shimon Prokupecz because we're getting more details inside that courtroom.
Yeah, so just to tell viewers, we have producers and reporters inside, so they're reporting back to us what's going on. And essentially, this issue is now over with. It's off the table. The judge is going to accept Flynn's guilty plea. So we're now finally moving on from this issue that the defense attorneys had raised. The judge gave Flynn several opportunities to withdraw his guilty plea, several opportunities. And Flynn finally said, I would like to proceed, Your Honor. And the judge asked him, because you're guilty of this offense? And then Michael Flynn says, yes, Your Honor. And at that point, the judge accepted his guilty plea. And now we're probably going to move on to the sentencing phase, where we're going to start hearing arguments on behalf of Michael Flynn and obviously on the special counsel's office, arguing for the jail sentence or no jail sentence that Michael Flynn is likely to face here.
I want to bring in Jim Sciutto. Jim, as the chief national security correspondent who has been following this case from the very beginning, what is your take on what we're learning?
Listen, it's a remarkable moment, Pamela, that this line that Michael Flynn was trapped into lying here is a consistent one. It's come, as you noted, from the president. It's come from Fox News, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, to GOP senators. They've talked about process crimes. They've intimated that he didn't know what he was getting into here on this. But you heard directly from the defendant's mouth there saying, no, that's not true. You heard it from the defendant's attorney there saying, no, we do not think we were treated unfairly. That is quite a counterpoint to something that forms an essential pillar of the president's argument here about a witch hunt, an investigation that's gotten out of hand, an investigation that treats people unfairly. You've seen him say that not just about Flynn, but about Paul Manafort, when the courts are finding differently. And even the defendants involved are stating under oath differently, as you saw Michael Flynn there. And I think that's an important moment in this case because it doesn't just undermine, it contradicts a line repeated by the president as recently as this morning.
And it raises the question of why Michael Flynn's attorneys tried to argue to the court that he wasn't warned by the FBI that lying to them was a crime and therefore he was given some sort of false sense of security, when now you have Michael Flynn telling the court, look, I was aware that lying to the FBI was a crime during that interview.
Yeah, it's interesting. And listen, we were talking about this earlier in the morning with legal experts, the former Attorney General for the state of New Jersey, a point that Michael Zeldin made as well, that by raising that balloon, as Flynn's attorneys did, about the possibility that he was mistreated, how that forced the hand of the release to some degree of those 302s, the records of those interviews yesterday, to show, in fact, no, he lied willfully and was given opportunities by those FBI agents to correct that lie and did not take those opportunities, that tactic by his defense attorneys may have backfired, and the tongue lashing he appears to be getting here from the judge here, and the holding him to account on those intimations seems to be a result of that. Did that attempt to parrot the president on his mistreatment, his alleged mistreatment there, did it put them in a worse position rather than a better one?